So we will ask for our treasurer, our awesome treasurer, Janet Neff, to come forward. And accompanying her is Mr. Albert Glenn, chair of our Finance Committee. You'll come up shortly. So I now ask Ms. Janet Neff, member of St. Luke, Devon, and our treasurer, Mr. Bert Glenn, St. John's Melrose Park, to come forward for our presentation of the auditor's report and our proposed budget. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me. The first thing I would like to do is make a remembrance to our former treasurer, Richard Rimet, who passed away last year. He was very dedicated to God, to his church, to the Synod, to the ELCA. He was very dedicated, was a very good servant of ours for many years, and I just wanted to remember him today because of what he committed to our Synod for so many years, and as I said, he passed away last year. Now, one of the things that Dick Rimet brought to our Synod was, if I can do this right, for a night at the Phillies. Preacher. I don't have Harper on me yet. Anyway, Lutheran Night at the Phillies is on Friday, June 7th. The game starts at 7:05. I will be there. My husband Paul will be there. So I hope that we will greet many of you for the Lutheran Night at the Phillies, and then whatever additional is paid will go to help our youth ministry program. So I just wanted to start with that. Now I'll get moving. Okay, first of all, the first 3 slides of the report are about the audit report that I'm going to go over with you. After we do the audit report, then I'll go more into 2018, what we did in 18, and what our 19 budget is. And as you know, because of our timing, we approved the 19 budget last year, and Mr. Glenn will be going over our 2020 budget after I report. Okay, so the first thing is we have the audit report. What I do is, as CPA, I make sure that our audit report is reconciled with our financial statements. So I can tell you that our financial statements are all in good order and they agree with the audited financials. So that's the first thing. Okay, on the first slide, we talk about the statement of financial position. And that is a statement of our assets and liabilities as of one particular date, and our year ends January 31st. So I summarized it to tell you we have cash and investments of $3,634,000, and our total assets are $4,824,000, and that includes some other property that we own, which is at Bear Creek and University Lutheran. We also have some liabilities, but they're not significant. They're more payables that we had at the end of the year that get paid usually in February or March. So that brings assets minus liabilities equal our net assets of $4,668,000. What we do at the Synod is we divide things according to unrestricted, temporarily restricted, and permanently restricted. Temporarily restricted are things that come in the current year or in a couple years, but it's short term where we plan to disperse those funds, which have been designated for a specific purpose. The permanently restricted are things we've received on bequests that have a specific purpose that we are only receiving the dividend income for. So that is basically a snapshot of where we stood as of January 31st. The next slide tells us about the revenue that we've received during the year. Okay, these are all of our categories, so even though we separate them into unrestricted, permanently, temporarily, these are all of our categories. So the first category is mission support, and that is what we get from you, your congregations. This is what you're giving to the Synod for our support. We also have other contributions. We have things that have been given to us from some congregations that have closed. So last year we had something from St. John's Quakertown. We had something from All Saints. We had different things from grants and trusts and reimbursements. Those are all the things that go into other contributions. Registration fees. We have things like what we're doing right now, assembly fees. We have the convocation that our rostered leaders go into. Those are what are called registration fees. Now, our investment income, you see that that's a negative. Okay. Now, what happened is this, that we have dividend income that comes in of $176,000. But as many of you might know in your own personal lives, at the end of the year, the stock market had gone down. Okay, and we realized an unrealized loss of $220,000. Now, what is unrealized? Unrealized means we still have the investment, but the market value went down. So if I have 100,000 in something, I didn't sell the 100,000. It just means that 100,000 might only be worth 80,000 today. And hopefully that 80,000 will get to 120,000, but we don't know that. So that's the reason we have unrealized. Realized losses are when you buy and sell things. So that's the reason that the investment income shows a negative. So by the time we were done with all of these things, our income was about $2,500,000. The next slide shows us expenses, and I will go into this in a little bit more detail later. But we have our operating expenses of $1.2 million. We have what we gave to the ELCA, which is 50% of our partnership support, which was $899,000. We have the property management of the closed church buildings, which was $110,000. We have distribution to other agencies. Those agencies are Muhlenberg, they're the seminary, they're Bear Creek, they're archives, all kinds of things like that that we give to. The mission expense includes things like our youth ministry, global ministry, the mission congregations that we have, some congregations in the Synod that we give out to, all related to mission. We have some grants to some individual congregations that we're giving out. So our total expenses at the end of the day were $2,745,000. Now, I just told you on the previous slide that we received $2,500,000, and now we had expenses of $2,700,000. So there's a $200,000 difference there. You might say, well, where did we get the money for the $200,000 difference? Exactly what I just told you. It was that unrealized loss in there for the $200,000 from the investments. So it's not that we're spending more than we're getting in, but unfortunately, because of investments, what we ended up having in our budget was decreased. Okay. So basically, that is the most of the audit report. There were some things in the audit report this year that were a little different, and it had nothing to do with us, but it has to do with nonprofit accounting. And so if some of you look at the audit report, you'll see that on pages 8 and 12, the auditors are now required to report some of our expenses by nature and function. So that's just a new thing that happened in the auditor's report. But I basically tried in the first 3 slides to give you a synopsis of what's in the report. Okay. Then the auditor has a letter in the audit report. And what I want to do is I want to read to you their opinion before we make a vote on something. So, quote, "In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Synod as of January 31st, 2019, and the changes in its net assets and its cash flows for the year then ended in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States of America." Okay, now I'm going to make a resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that the Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod Assembly receive as information the report of the auditors of the Synod's financial statements for the year ended January 31st, 2019. Receive? Okay. We said receive, but you want me to say accept the information? Yes. Accept, okay, so accept as information the report. Okay, wait. You want me to say, the resolution should say, receive, no, accept the report. Okay, accept the information, no wait, accept the report of the auditors. Right, okay, got it. Okay, let me repeat it then. Therefore, be it resolved that the Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod Assembly accept the report of the auditors of the Synod's financial statements for the year ended January 31st, 2019.
It has been moved and second to accept the auditor's report. Is there any discussion? I see no one coming to a microphone. Are you ready to vote? Do we have our cards available to us? All in favor? Any opposed? I declare the motion is accepted. Thank you. And thank you.
Okay, the next part of my report has to do with 2018, how we did, and the budget for 2019. So the next slide shows us income, and it shows us in blue what we had, what the actual was. The green is what we had budgeted, and the 2019 is in the red. So basically, the mission support was a little under what we had expected. So it was $1,798,000 versus $1,850,000. I would like to say that the bishop, the staff, the Synod Council would all like to thank you very much for your mission support. And we do understand that it is a sacrifice for you. And we just want to know, we want you to know how much it helps us locally, globally, nationally. So we're very appreciative of all the support that you have given us. So even though the support is down, yes, of course we would like you to increase what you're giving. And we're probably going to say that we would like you to consider generously increasing. If you're in a church that receives additional contributions in the year, so say your contributions go up 3%, what we are asking for is that you would consider increasing your contributions to the Synod by 3%. Or if you're at 5% of your giving, consider going to 6% of your giving. So these are just some ideas that we have, and you'll be hearing from Karen wherever she is during the year. Okay, but I just want to let you know that even though the mission support was down, we very much appreciate all that you do for the Synod. And as we talked about earlier today in our groups, what's our relationship with the Synod, right? Okay. Now we have other contributions, as I mentioned, that come in sometimes from individuals, sometimes from other churches, from our different appeals that we have. We have the registration fees, as I talked about, the investment income, and then we have what are called the sale of closed church buildings. And these are related to churches that have already closed, and then in that process, we eventually try to sell those buildings. So you'll see that in the green, we had thought we were going to sell a building, and that did not happen, but it has happened in the 2019 budget. So I just wanted to clear that up. The next schedule talks about 2018 mission support, and it just kind of shows you where we were in 16, 17, and 18. So there's not big differences, but as I mentioned, it still was a decrease. Next slide shows us congregations. And what we're doing is we're comparing that to the regular giving in your congregation in 2017. And the reason we can't compare that to 18 yet is because we don't have all the parochial reports in yet, so we don't know what all the congregations' regular givings are. But this just kind of gives you an idea of how many congregations are giving at the 10%, which would be tithing, and then what they're giving at the various other levels. The next slide's going to talk about expenses. Okay, and the expenses that I mentioned earlier. And you can see on the first one, we're talking about operating expenses in the blue. We had some decreases in our operating expenses, so even though we had a decrease in our mission support, we also had a decrease in some expenses accordingly. Now, in 2019, we're looking to increase that, and part of that is just normal things like we have some staff increases, and now we have a full-time candidacy and development person, so that will be increasing some of our costs. We give proportionately to the ELCA, set 50%. So as you give to us, we give 50% to them. We have property management expenses. We're looking as some of these church buildings sell, then we look for our costs to go down. But once a church closes, we are responsible for the property, the insurance, repairs, all kinds of other things in the meantime. And for some of you, maybe that don't haven't heard how it works when a church building sells, what happens is there could be a long period that goes from the time that unfortunately a church closes, and then the building is vacant, and that's when the synod takes it over, takes care of it, etc. And sometimes it could be quick, but sometimes it could be years before we're able to sell it. When we do sell a building, what happens is 15% of the net sale of that goes to the synod. Then we reimburse ourselves for those building costs, and then the amount goes into the fund for mission, and that fund for mission is helping us to help other churches. So just to give you an idea about how the money is flowing. So in 2019, already in March, we did sell a church building, and about $600,000 of that is going into our fund for mission to help us for our future. Okay, I just wanted to explain that. As I talked about earlier, distributions to agencies are things like Muhlenberg, the seminary, Bear Creek, etc. Our mission expenses are related to youth ministry, global ministry, our mission congregations. And then we have grants to other types of organizations. So that kind of gives you an idea of our total expenses of the $2,745,000. Then we kind of show you in a pie chart how it all comes out. Partnerships, mission, leadership, administration, and office of the bishop. Okay, and I'll go over those. Okay, so the first one has to do with partnerships. And you'll see on the next slide, it tells you in partnerships that we give ELCA $899,000, and then we have the other partnerships I just mentioned, Seminary, Muhlenberg, Bear Creek, Forward Together in Faith, etc. They're all our other partnerships. And you can read in the language what it is. It's assisting other agencies, institutions, ecumenical and interfaith partners, interdependence with church-wide ministries, etc. Okay, so that's partnerships. The next slide will be mission, and as I told you, and mission is a broad category, and it provides oversight, equipping, and financial assistance to mission congregations. It's also equipping assistance to other congregations that we know about, and it's also, the areas are mission, global vision, companion synod, youth and young adult ministry, and other ministries that we have that are trying to, like our Vitality Task Force that you'll be hearing from tomorrow. That is part of our mission expense as well, trying to look at our current congregations and looking at some situations that might just need a little bit of help. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. Also, last year in the mission, we gave out grants for African descent strategy in the amount of $20,000. The Office of the Bishop, $880,000. And we'll go into that, I'll have another chart on that, but basically provides leadership and oversight for the Word, Sacrament, Witness, Mission of the Synod. It's the Synod Council, it's this assembly, it's deans, it's finance, it's communication, stewardship, special events, interim, transformational. So there's a lot that goes into the Office of the Bishop. Also, since this was brought up at last year's assembly, We have, under anti-racism, we have racial justice training. And what happened was, we didn't, first of all, in 2017, we took an offering, and we got the offering for the racial justice training, and that was $3,000. That was never spent in 2018. So now, in 2019, we've budgeted $7,000 for it, and we're also adding the $3,000 from the 2017 offering. So now there'll be $10,000 budgeted for the racial justice training. I just wanted to bring that up because I know that came up last year. Okay, the next slide shows in a pie chart the office of the bishop and the various categories: deans, finance and development, communications, forward together in faith, and as I talked about earlier, temporarily restricted, things that come in and that will eventually go out. Synod administration is one of the categories. That's okay, 311,000. And then the other category is leadership, which is 68,000, which is the area that includes candidacy and lay leadership, and raising up, support, equipping, connecting, and nurturing rostered and lay leaders for the work of ministry for building up the body of Christ. Now, this concludes my report. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, well then that sounds good. Okay, but before I finish, I wish to thank Martin Schwab, who is standing in the back. He is our senior accountant, and I just want to thank him for the wonderful job that he does for our synod, and also how responsive he is to me as the treasurer. So thank you again for listening, and if you have any specific questions that I did not go over or you did not want to bring up, please come up to me at any time. Thank you.